A member of Hamas's political bureau told Al Jazeera earlier that the group was meeting at the time of the attack with, quote, a positive outlook on the American ceasefire proposal. He also said that the group holds the American administration responsible for the attack. Now, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has been speaking over the past hour in her regular press briefing, and she's been asked about this Israeli strike on Doha. She said the Israeli strike was, quote, unfortunate, and that Qatar had advance warning of the attack.
This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
And breaking news, just in the last few moments, Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson has addressed what you heard there from the White House press spokesperson, that the country was informed of that Israeli attack on Doha beforehand. Qatar is saying that is false. Charles Stratford is live from the Corniche in Doha for us again. So, Charles, Qatar now directly contradicting what the White House said.
That's right, that statement from the foreign ministry literally dropping a couple of minutes ago. I'll read out exactly what it says. It says that the statements being circulated about Qatar being informed in advance of the attack are baseless. The statement goes on to say that the communication received from one of the American officials happened during the sound of the explosions. This obviously comes on the back of that statement made by the White House earlier, which said that Steve Witkoff, the US Special Envoy, was told to inform the Qataris of the impending attack. So Qatar very keen to point out that seemingly that advance warning that Witkoff was told to give the Qataris was nowhere near on time. The Qataris saying that they received it as the attack itself was happening.
Charles, can you remind our viewers, can you give us some context here on U.S.-Qatar relations? Because they are very close allies. Donald Trump was here 3 months ago.
That's right. Very close relations and relations that were established a long time ago. We know that the U.S. has its largest airbase here in Qatar. Trump has always been very generous and previous administrations very generous in their comments about the Qataris. And we know how pivotal the Qataris have been in trying to mediate an end to this war. The White House only this evening or this afternoon in Washington saying that this attack did not advance Israel or US goals. It said that hitting Hamas is a worthy goal, but it said that the US feels badly about the location of the attack. And we know now that Trump has subsequently spoken to Qatar's leader following that attack. But yeah, the relationship between the US has for decades between the US and Qatar been very strong indeed. And it seems as if, certainly there seems to be an attempt by both the US and the Qataris to try and calm the situation down with respect to any major diplomatic fallout that could occur following these attacks between the US and Qatar. But very telling now that the Qataris have said that they didn't receive any warning in advance of this attack. The only warning that they received, according to the Foreign Ministry, was whilst those attacks were actually happening.
Charles Stratford reporting from Doha. Thank you very much, Charles. Al Jazeera's White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett joins us. Kimberly, it's very important that we speak to you at this point because the U.S. is a very important part of this puzzle, and Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, has just been fielding questions about this, about what the U.S. knew, when they knew it, and what they did subsequently. So fill us in on everything that you've learned because you were sitting in on that White House press briefing.
Yeah, well, the White House is denying, despite some media reports, that the U.S. President Donald Trump, in fact, greenlit or approved or even had advanced knowledge of the Israeli strike that amounted to, we believe, about 12 strikes inside of Doha, Qatar. In fact, what she's saying is that she was notified, or rather the U.S. president was notified by the United States military that an attack was ongoing. Not that it was imminent, but that it was already taking place. And that is when the U.S. president reportedly, according to the White House press secretary, notified the special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, who then in turn notified the Qataris that this was taking place. I'm sure they also knew from within, from their own security service. But the bottom line is that the White House has been very contrite about what has occurred, given the strong relationship that exists between the United States and Qatar. The White House press secretary saying that this is a sovereign nation, speaking about Qatar, and that it's a close ally working to broker peace. And the strikes by the Israelis do not advance either Israeli interests or American interests. Now, it's important to note that there was a follow-up question, Cyril, that was whether or not the Israelis had informed the U.S. military in advance of this strike. And the White House press secretary would not answer that question, only saying that the president himself, the commander-in-chief, heads the military, that he was notified while it was ongoing. One other thing that we should point out is that as you've been talking about the reactions that have been coming from within Qatar, the Qatari embassy to the United States has also been notifying members of Congress and saying that it is acknowledged within the Qatari government that despite conflicting media accounts, we are confident that this was a unilateral military strike conducted by Israeli forces without advanced consultation of the United States. So this is something that is being echoed and reinforced through diplomatic channels. We should also point out, though, that there are already members of Congress, including some prominent Democrats, who are condemning what Israel has done, including a Congresswoman from Minnesota, Betty McCallum, who has said that she condemns this unprovoked attack and that Netanyahu's government is a destabilizing force in the Middle East as a result of these actions.
Kimberly, Donald Trump, as we pointed out with our correspondent in Doha, Donald Trump was here a few months ago. He was standing by the emir, and he made a big show of how much he loves this guy. Those were his words. And he's also, of course, a very staunch ally of Israel. Is there, based on your sources, is there at the White House or the State Department, is there a realization that in a moment like this, like today, those two things may not be compatible?
If there is, it's not being voiced publicly. But if you do look at the nuanced language by the White House press secretary, it's very clear that there is concern about damaging the relationship with Qatar, not just because the emir and the U.S. president get along, but as we've been talking, there's a U.S. airbase, Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. There is also a business relationship to the tune of $1.7 trillion of investments that have been made in the United States by the Qataris. There is an ongoing back and forth that is of grave concern of being jeopardized. add to that, the Qataris have been instrumental on the diplomatic side in terms of not just working as a mediator with Hamas, but also in other global conflicts. Doha has been on the world stage for more than a decade in that capacity. And the United States is keenly aware that it needs the support of the Qataris and that relationship with the Qataris to move and advance some of their own interests in the region forward. So the White House, again, parsing its language, saying that they are unhappy with the location of the Israeli attack, but not the ultimate goal, it says, in terms of eliminating Hamas.
Yeah, Kimberly Halkett reporting from the White House. Thank you very much.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.